I thought kind of like teaching is the way into this industry. But I realized maybe for me it's not coming naturally, but I found my way to still be part of that industry, right? With the skills that I have.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in each week. And if you are a new podcast listener, I want to say welcome and thank you for tuning in. So if you're new, I just want to quickly talk about why I started this podcast and who is this podcast for. I started this podcast because I am a full-time yoga teacher and I get asked a lot of questions about being a full-time yoga teacher. Like, is it possible? How many classes do you have to teach? How long have you been doing this? Where else do you teach? These kind of questions that I also had when I first became a yoga teacher. I wish I had podcasts like this when I first started that I can listen to so I can learn and get inspired by other full-time yoga teachers and their journey. And also feel this sense of community in the yoga teaching world. Sometimes being a yoga teacher can feel a little bit lonely if you don't have a supportive, loving community of yoga teachers that you can turn to, talk with, get advice on, or maybe sometime even vent. So that's why I created this podcast, so that you can hear the conversation I'm having with other full-time yoga teachers around the world, how they got to where they are, what inspired them to become a yoga teacher, and what kind of business tips and tricks that they have that made it work for them to continue on with their full-time yoga teaching career. I also interview part-time yoga teachers as well as someone who used to be a yoga teacher, or maybe someone who works in the yoga world but not really teach yoga asana class. Because I think these are all unique and different and fascinating way that people make a living doing what they love, which is yoga. So I like to highlight different teachers, different professionals in the yoga world. And I am not trying to promote that full-time yoga teacher is the path that everybody should follow. I think it is one of the paths that is possible, but also doesn't have to be the path for you. There's so many ways to go about and be a yoga teacher or work in the yoga industry and do what you love. That doesn't always include being a full-time teacher of teaching 10, 20, 30 classes a week. So anyway, I hope you enjoy all the previous interviews I have recorded in the past. There are a lot of amazing people I interviewed, so I really encourage you to scroll back and check out some other interviews that I had in the past. I do have a few announcements. We are in December. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's already December. I started this podcast January of 2024, the first Monday of January 2024. Told myself that I am going to commit to producing one episode per week. Every Monday I am producing an episode. And that is a commitment I made, and so far I have kept my commitment. I tend to stick with my words and my goals when I actually say I am going to do it. So I have successfully produced every Monday a new episode, and I can't believe we are about to enter our final month of 2025. There might be a few changes in the upcoming format of this podcast in 2025. I will keep you updated. First announcement is that I am teaching 200 hours teacher training. It is not just any other 200-hour teacher training. It is SmartFlow 200-hour teacher training. This is in-person training happening in Orange County of Southern California, Laguna Niguel, at a yoga studio called Live Meta. And it's going to be every other weekend format, in person, from February to May of 2025. If you are interested in getting a 200-hour teacher training, or maybe you already have one, but you feel like your first training wasn't enough, I can guarantee you are going to learn so much in this SmartFlow training. SmartFlow is a teaching and practicing methodology of yoga developed by my dear teacher, Annie Carpenter. And you are going to learn about movement, anatomy, functional movement, philosophy, intelligent sequencing, and the essence of yoga in this training. I have a hard time recommending teacher trainings to students who ask because I have high standard for a teacher training that I would recommend to someone. So trust me when I say this training that's happening in February, SmartFlow 200-hour teacher training that I will be co-leading it with Shanti, is going to be a high quality teacher training that you are going to get. So if you have any questions about that, you're always welcome to reach out to me. We do have scholarship available, so if that is an issue, just reach out to me. I'll put the link to the teacher training on the show notes of this podcast, but you can always direct message me on Instagram or message me through my website. I'll have all the links on the show notes. Another announcement is registration for my mentorship for yoga teachers is now open. I run a mentorship for yoga teachers every year, actually every month, but every 4 months I open up the registration. I open up the applications for new teachers to join. Every 4 months is a module. So January until April of 2025 will be module 1 of 2025 mentorship program for yoga teachers. And what is included in the mentorship? It is going to be a hybrid program of in-person and live stream Zoom, as well as pre-recorded content. I am going to have a monthly guest teacher. Once a month, new guest teacher is going to teach their specialty topic. And that can be in-person, hybrid, or Zoom workshop. There will be monthly philosophy discussions, yoga philosophy, as well as monthly Q&A sessions with me. There's also monthly pranayama and meditation class. There's also practice teaching session for those who want the practice teaching and get feedback from me or other teachers in the community. There is also an opportunity to book one-on-one session with me to talk about any specific questions that you might have or challenges that you might be going through. Also going to be Asana Lab pre-recorded bite-sized tutorial is going to be sent to you every month on different asana. And this module, I am adding something new and special, which is Yoga Book Club. So we are going to commit to reading 1 book per module, which is 1 book for every 4 months. So if you are a slow reader like myself, don't worry, you can still join. You'll have 4 months to complete a book. We'll meet once a month to talk about the book, and it's going to be yoga related book. We will meet on Zoom. We haven't decided the meeting time and date because I want to take in count of everyone who's joining their availability. So if you're interested in the book club, I'm opening up the book club to anybody who's interested in joining. You don't have to be a yoga teacher, and this will be a free group to join. All you have to do is message me and let me know that you are interested in joining the book club, and I will add you in the WhatsApp group for the book club. We actually have a lot of people interested in the book club, so I'm actually excited for this community to evolve. The first book that we are going to read for Module 1, which is January till April of 2025, is a book called The Kleshas, Exploring the Elusiveness of Happiness by Deborah Adele. This book is available on Audible if you like to listen on the go or when you're commuting. But if you like to read from a hard copy, you're welcome to purchase the book from wherever you purchase the book from. Maybe you might be able to find a used book in a thrift book website as well. So whether you're going to listen to it in Audible or whether you're going to read the hard copy, I made sure that there's both options available for the book we're going to choose. So that's the book we're going to be reading for the first module. And like I said, it's part of the offering for the mentorship program. But if you're not part of the mentorship, you are not a yoga teacher, it doesn't matter. You're still welcome to join the book club. And all you have to do is message me and tell me that you're interested, and I will add you in. Another exciting details about the mentorship is that every month I have a guest teacher teaching a special topic workshop. The special topic workshop is usually 1.5 to 2 hours long, on Zoom, in person, or hybrid. So whether you live in another time zone, you don't live in Long Beach like I do, you can still join via Zoom, whether it's a Zoom only workshop or hybrid style where in person and Zoom both are available. All the workshops are recorded so you can watch it later if you missed it. And some of the lineup for Module 1 I'm very excited about. I have Diana, who I interviewed in this podcast. She's going to be teaching neuro and somatic tools and movement practices for January and February. For March, I have Ali G, which I also interviewed on this podcast, teaching inversions and handstand workshop. This will be hybrid style in person if you live near, and we'll be zooming in people on Zoom for people who live in a different time zone or different location. And for April, we have Hannah, who I also interviewed on the podcast, teaching us Intro to Trauma-Informed Yoga. So I have a great lineup. One more thing you get as part of the mentorship is that you get unlimited access to my online yoga studio. So if you want to come take a Zoom class, or you want to watch the recording of my previous Zoom classes, whether that's yoga, whether that's strength class, whether that's restorative or yin or pranayama, you are welcome to come take the class live with me on Zoom anytime or watch the recording anytime. Ooh, one more perks to join my mentorship program is that I have a lot of amazing workshops from the previous mentorship programs in the last several years that you can watch the recording of, such as Sequencing 101, Cueing 101, How to Lead a Yoga Retreat, Asana Lab, and anatomical breakdown of poses and movement of our human body. So there are a lot of juicy informational workshop and recordings that you're going to have access to once you are part of the mentorship program. So I encourage people to join for the 4-month commitment of 4 months. If you can only join for 1 or 2 or 3 months, that is possible, but I always encourage 4-month commitment if possible. If you're interested, I will link the application form on the show notes. So I want you to fill out the application form if you are new to my mentorship program, just to make sure we are the right fit to work with one another. You are the right fit for the group that we have. Pretty much all I'm asking for is your commitment and your desire to learn and be part of the community. So if you think you are that person, I welcome you to fill out the application so you can join this amazing community of yoga teachers. With that said, let's start to discuss and talk about the podcast interview I have this week. This week, I interviewed my friend Tina, and Tina and I met in Goa, India, almost 2 years ago. I attended Joan Hyman, which is my teacher that I also interviewed recently. I attended her 150 hours advanced teacher training 2 weeks program or a retreat in India 2 years ago. And that's where I met Tina. Tina was helping the retreat, helping out with the back end of the retreat for Joan, but she was also taking the training as a student, and we became friends. I loved her journey, her story that she had, and I've been wanting to have her on the podcast for a really long time. So I'm so thankful that timing finally worked out that I could interview her. I think what's interesting about her journey is she is not currently teaching yoga. She have her 200 and 300 hour teacher training certification with Joan, but teaching yoga is not something that came naturally, or maybe a strong desire that she had, but she just loved yoga. She loves to practice and she loves to learn about yoga. That's why she continues to train and practice, and she is a very, very dedicated yoga practitioner. But where she shines is that she has the skill sets to help yoga teachers with branding, websites, or social media, consulting with yoga retreats. So she has an amazing skill set that a lot of yoga teachers lack, because I think yoga teachers tend to love teaching, but maybe aren't very tech savvy or don't really know how to strategize using social media for their teaching business. And Tina, this is where she shines. So she actually have been working remotely, working with different clients, with yoga teachers or wellness practitioner with their website, their retreat planning, their logo, their branding. So she's been working with yoga teachers on the back end. And as she continued working freelancing online with different clients, she travels around the world practicing and training yoga with amazing teachers across the world. So I think her journey, her story is unique and also inspiring. And that is why I wanted to have her on. So I'm excited to introduce Tina, the founder of Soul Spark Creation. With an executive MBA and years of experience in marketing and business development, Tina has found a way to blend her corporate expertise with her love for yoga and wellness. Through her remote business, she helps yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs thrive by offering support with branding, websites, and social media. Tina's story is proof that you don't have to be a yoga teacher to build a meaningful career in the yoga world. In this episode, we explore her journey and how she bridges business and spirituality to help others succeed. So let's begin this conversation I had with Tina, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome, Tina, for joining me on the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm very excited that I get to have this conversation with you. I haven't spoken to you one-on-one since last time I saw you in India, Goa, which was almost 2 years ago. So I'm so happy that we get to have this quality time to chat. How are you doing?
Thanks, Reika. Very nice hearing you and I'm seeing you. Thanks for inviting me in. I'm very excited talking to you. And yeah, you were right. It's been a while since we both had a chance to chat. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talk to you finally.
Me too. I'm very excited because I've been following your journey on Instagram, and you've been traveling a lot and helping with retreats, joining retreat, or taking trainings in India. And I just feel like there's so much amazing stories and journey that you have that I really want to hear about and also share it with the listeners. So maybe first begin with, where are you currently located?
So my base is in Switzerland for 8.5 years already. It's crazy. Originally from Germany, yeah, but living quite a while in Zurich, Switzerland.
Okay, and it must be getting cold right now. Has it snowed already?
Yeah, we had actually a lot of snow last weekend, and really 40 centimeters. So okay. A lot of snow already.
Yeah, wow. And I met you, for the listener, I met Tina for the first time in India, Goa, 2 years ago when I attended Joan's retreat/training. I believe it was advanced 150 hours training. And that's where I met Tina, because Tina was helping Joan out with, I guess, like technical, tech side, organizational, admin side of Joan's retreats and trainings. So that's when I kind of met her. So I want to know, I know you took your 200 hour with Joan. So can you tell me, when did you first realize that you wanted to take a 200 hour teacher training?
Yeah, well, this was actually in a quite challenging time for myself. This was like a little bit also the start of my transition, where I guess we talk later about. It was during Corona, and I worked for a long time in the corporate world. And with Corona, I was out of the sudden in short time. So I was like only working 50%. And then I had time, which I never had before. Kind of like, or at least I told myself I don't have time. And so I was like thinking, well, finally I have the time to do the things I really want to do. And I said, like, I want to do a yoga teacher training, because I just love to learn about yoga. So my main idea was not like becoming a teacher, but really to dive deeper. And so I met Joan, luckily, in 2021, because she was one of the very rare teachers who was offering a teacher training in person during that time. And yeah, I signed in, I met her, and this kind of changed my journey completely. Yeah.
And where was the teacher training that Joan was teaching?
It was in Vienna, Austria,
Mhm.
so close by.
Yeah. And until that time, did you know Joan already? Have you heard of her already? Or did you just kind of search 200-hour teacher training and hers popped up?
Well, kind of. I was actually signed in for teacher training in Bali, but it didn't happen because of Corona.
Mhm.
And so then I was asking around my network, and a former work colleague, Priyanka, she recommended me Joan, and she was like, maybe you can just type in Joan Heimel and Google if she's offering something. And then yeah, it just worked out. It popped up that she's doing something in Europe, and I was like, well, then let's just try hers. So it was really kind of like a coincidence or like by a universe who put me there.
Yeah. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of in-person teacher training in Europe.
No, no, no. Because of Corona, it was really very limited. And even in Vienna, we had kind of like restrictions, of course, and we were a super small group, which was amazing, of course, for us practitioners. But yeah, it was really special. Yeah.
But it seems like you have already signed up or were looking at 200-hour teacher training in Bali. So you were already thinking of becoming a teacher prior to that COVID happened.
Well, it was still, I think it was in the beginning of Corona when I was deciding for that training and like or shortly before. I
Hmm.
can't remember honestly, but yeah, I was thinking about it because yoga was always a part of my life,
Hmm.
and I really wanted to dive deeper. So for me, it was more about learning about yoga and for especially philosophy. I was always very interested in philosophy and like just understanding our body better
Hmm.
anatomy wise. So yeah, I was very interested in that.
How amazing that, your first teacher training with Joan and how you kind of stumbled upon her training because
Right.
she's such an amazing teacher to learn from. So I want to ask you about teacher training, but before that, what was your corporate job?
Well, I was working in the travel industry. That was why I was hit so much from Corona, of course. But I had a quite responsible job, so I was the COO of a company, and I was responsible for Switzerland. And then I also worked in the medical health system, so in the digital health system. Yeah, I was working a lot actually. I mean, Zurich in Switzerland, I think, is well known for having quite heavy jobs. Let's call it like this. So yeah, and I was like many people, like I was in a classical 9 to 5 job or maybe even more than a 9 to 5 job. And yeah, when Corona happened, it was the first time I got really slowed down because out of the sudden there was like no income anymore. And so we had to figure out the new situation. Yeah.
Yeah. And before Corona, COVID time, when you're working that 9 to 5, but probably plus more hours, were you happy in your job? Did you enjoy the work you were doing?
Well, I enjoyed my job, yeah, because I love the travel industry. I mean, kind of I'm still traveling a lot. But there was still something, I was always seeking for something. I always were missing something. And also I was with a very young age on a very responsible job position. So I was always having a lot of men around me. So I always needed to have a lot of strengths and like doing the extra mile. I saw it like, so I always say like I have to fight for stuff more than others, maybe in the same positions. But overall, I really enjoyed my job. Yeah, it was not that I was totally unhappy in my job. It was more about I didn't have a good balance in that job, let's say like this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a classical career path I was in. So yeah.
Yeah. And so COVID happened, you had more time, decided to sign up for teacher training with Joan. So tell me about that teacher training. Like, how long was it? How many people were in it? How has it impacted your yoga practice, but also maybe your life from that teacher training?
Well, I mean, it was really profound and transformative. And as you said, I mean, how lucky was I that by coincidence I ended up in a training with Joan, because little did I know right before. And well, we were only 10 people or 11 because we were really restricted and had like this. The studio it was more about the studio that it could happen. We needed all these tests every day. And it was like we had to keep some limit space in between us. I mean, every one of us remember that time. So it was just with more restrictions, but they wanted to do it and it was possible to do with handling the tests in. And in total, it was 5 weeks, I guess. And we split it. It was 2 weeks, and then we had 3 weeks break where we had homework to do and some teachings, preparing some teachings. And then we met again, and it was another 2 weeks. So it was 4 weeks in person, and some weeks in between we had homework to do. So yeah. And it was in summer 2021. And well, it really changed my practice and everything, because before, I mean, yoga was probably still, it was a part of me, but it was like not embracing it like I'm doing it afterwards. I really developed self-practice during that or with the training. And this, I mean, yeah, everything changed for me during that training. It was really a big shift that happened with me in that training. Like I guess for many people when they do their 200 hours, something was really shifting.
Yeah. And I'm curious, well, first of all, I'm surprised that you had to take, I mean, I understand it too, but you had to take tests every day to come to your in-person training. I mean, I remember those times were it feels so surreal in my memory, but yeah, so that's such an interesting thing that you had to take COVID tests every day to come into your class. Was Joan offering hands-on assist at the time in that teacher training? Maybe because of the test, everybody tested, everybody felt comfortable.
Exactly. It was also kind of like, an agreement between her and us practitioners, and for all of us, it was totally fine. So we did a normal training. We did hands-on adjustment. We were just a small group, and like I said, we need to be like with this testing safe on that side, or whatever safe is in that moment. But like the restrictions we had to follow, right?
And what year was that teacher training?
21.
21, okay. And after the training was over, what happened to your life? Did your company start reopening? Did you start working for your corporate job again, or what happened?
Yeah, exactly. I was still in that job during the training, but with that training, I already had in my mind like I need to change something. And when coming back, I had a conversation with my boss, and luckily we always had a good relationship. So I was like, we were talking very, very honest and openly, and also because I had to lay off a lot of people. So my job position also changed, like, and I was like seeking for something new. So it was also a little bit naturally that I kind of changed my path. And then yeah, we just decided to separate, and I started to follow my own journey. Yeah. So this happened. But I think without the training, I would probably never had the courage to really do that step, because it was so much comfort. Still, like, I mean, that, and a lot of people know that, like earning, having all the money on your bank account, like you just know the money is coming, right? This changed, of course, completely afterwards. So it took me quite a while to really took that step. And I think the pandemic plus the training really, yeah, excelled that.
And how, because you said earlier you did enjoy your job. So what is it about the pandemic and also taking that teacher training made you realize that you wanted a different path?
Well, I just realized that first of all, it's really nice having some free time. Not saying that I have more free time now, but like just in general, enjoying life more from like I actually can decide what I want to do. And like if I'm working on a Sunday, it's no problem, but then I can like doing something else on a Wednesday and just having more flexibility. And for me in general, I liked my job, yes, but at some point I was like, I was just seeking for something deeper, I guess, like for more meaningful and also like what comes out of me naturally instead of following some guidelines that are made. And like, yeah, it also felt really nice to not have that business pressure for a while. I was really happy that this kind of happened to me also, and I could follow more my own passions for creating. Yeah.
I love that you were really listening to your heart or your dharma of like you wanted to do something that was more purposeful and meaningful to you. I think for everyone that what that is different for everyone, but for you. And how did your family, friends react to you choosing to quit your corporate job? And did you have already a plan or another job or side income by the time you quit your corporate job?
Yeah, well, I definitely have to say here, when I made the decision I'm leaving my job, then like a couple of months later, it was like, oh, can I really do that? So first, I actually went back to another job because I still like I had the courage to go out there, but then the fear was coming back, and then I was like, well, how? Because Zurich, Switzerland, same like you guys in California, right? It's really tough. It's like you need quite some income to have a good living here. So I went into another job because I think like, well, maybe I'm not ready for it. So I did that, but after some months, I realized this will not work out because I was working 80% in a company and then still doing my stuff and projects besides because I have already started that. So I said at one point, it was I think after 6 months or so, I said like, okay, no, it's the time, and then I was really also feeling ready for like doing my own thing. So it needed a while. So it was a process, and my family was totally fine. They were like, if you follow your heart, we're behind you. So this was really nice, but it was a big shift with like my community here or the friends I built it in Switzerland because of course I came to Zurich because of my job, right? And it is really a career city. And also before the teacher training, I was just starting to study an executive MBA on the University of Zurich. So because the goal was actually to climb one step further in my career path and becoming a CEO. And yeah, I was surrounded by a lot of amazing people in different industries, right, in Zurich. So it was all about business and careers. And like we have big banks here and a lot of insurance companies. So kind of like this was my surrounding people a lot. So yeah, and this was not so easy with everyone. There were a lot of people like what are you doing here? Like you have a safe job, you earn a lot of money. Why do you want to break out of that? So it was more from this side that I had to, yeah, adapt to new situations. But my family was actually pretty fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that your family was like follow your heart and were behind you. I really love that because sometimes it's the, closest people in your life that if they're supporting you, it's most influential or, it's impactful when the one that's closest to you are supportive.
Yeah.
So when you finish your teacher training, did you have thought or intention of teaching yoga? And also when you quit your corporate job, what was your idea of how to earn an income on your own?
Yeah, well, you know what? It was very interesting during the training. I mean, somehow I had in my mind, yes, it would be nice to teach because somehow if you start to learn about all that, you kind of feel like I want to share that, right? You start to gaining that knowledge and you want to share. So I definitely knew I love the yoga world. I love the community, and I want to stay in that, let's call it a bubble. So, but I think for some people, even from some people from our training, it just naturally unfold. They started to teach, which didn't happen for me. However, I mean, Joan, after the training, just like a month later, she had workshops in Zurich, Switzerland, and I attended these workshops, and we went for lunch, and like also there, like, you know, life was flowing in a different way for me, because she like, listen, I need help with my social media, and I noticed during our teacher training that you were working in the breaks, because I did, like, I had already some projects ongoing. So you were working in that field, is that right? And would you be open to support me, because I really have a need there right now. So we were talking, and we're like, yeah, this sounds great. And she said, like, why don't we start with a kind of work trade? You help me, and you can do the 300-hour teacher training with me, and just continue your journey in the training, and then maybe also the teaching unfolds for you, even if it's not happening now. You never know, but maybe this is like, you know, your starting point into this industry. And so I really liked the idea, because somehow I also didn't felt ready to teach. So it took out a little bit the teaching pressure, but in the same time, it was like, okay, I can still use my skills and stay in that industry. So kind of like this was, yeah, my starting point.
Ah, that's so interesting. I didn't know that story. So you were already working like like freelance, working on
Yeah,
social media for another company during the teacher training that you were taking with Joan, and she saw that.
yeah.
Okay. And at that time during the teacher training, did you have already quit your full-time corporate job?
No, this was after. This was after the training.
Okay, got it. So you were still kind of working multiple jobs to make ends meet during that time. And how did you learn the social media skills? Was that part of your job prior to your yoga teacher training? Was that some of your training that you had?
Well, I guess first of all, I was always interested in that, so it came naturally to me. And yes, I mean, I was responsible for marketing in the company, so I overlooked that, marketing and sales. And then it was a big part of my studies. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just interested in, I just kind of like everything what is creative is like, I'm drawn to.
Yeah. And maybe so that conversation happened with Joan, and you started to do a trade where you were helping out with her social media and a website marketing as a trade for your 300 hours. So can you tell us like what did you do? What kind of work were you helping her with her school yoga school business?
Well, it was during that time I met her. She was in this big transition too. She was building her school, the School of Yoga. And so she needed help to build a website and starting social media as a brand and changing from Joan Hyman to School of Yoga. So she was like, would you be open to support that project? And this was kind of our agreement. I said, like, yes, I help you building up the brand for the School of Yoga, whatever is needed for that, like website stuff and social media, and like really creating the brand and a strategy behind. And yeah, and I could continue doing a lot of yoga with amazing teachers.
Yeah. Oh my God, sounds amazing. And then that's when you started to kind of travel, go to different training that Joan's teaching in different locations, retreats, and kind of helping her out on the back end side. And kind of tell us how the journey unfolded from there. I know you probably had more other freelance jobs during that time as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was really like the starting point. So this is why I'm saying, right? For some people, it just flows to teach after. This was kind of like my flowing in this journey. Because yeah, I started to travel. I start to meet new people. I mean, we met in India, right? So it's just like it just started to flowing. I met more people, and I realized there is actually really a need in the industry for my skill set that I'm bringing in. So I was talking to people, and then just naturally there was like, oh, I need help with my website, or I could need support here with social media, or can you give me a coaching in how I can grow my business? So kind of like it not from that point, it really naturally unfolded. And yeah, and for me, it opened the door to still travel. And yeah, it kind of it gave me the freedom to travel and yeah, get enough money to for the moment just do what I love, right?
Yeah. And I remember when I met you in India, you were on a long trip. It was part of your long journey. You were traveling to multiple countries for that trip. Was there a point where, okay, I'm gonna get rid of or move out of my place, sell everything, or you store everything away, and I'm going on this journey and just try to work online freelance while I'm traveling and training? Like, how did that transition go about for you?
Yeah, well, this was exactly when after I quit the job in the company, I was working for so long and I had fear to stand on my own feet. And I like, you know, how fear comes, anxiety comes in, and I went in this job again to try. And after 6 months, when I quit that, I said, like, listen, I need a break. I need to think about what I actually really want. And this is where I said, like, okay, I'm starting this freelance projects. I can do that, and I start to travel. And then we see where we go from there. And this is where we also met exactly. I started this journey and traveled around the world and like, yeah, went on a complete new journey. And here I am. Still I
Yeah.
am on it.
And how long was that first leg of journey that you did? Was it 9 months, or it was quite a long time that you were traveling?
I mean, I came back and forth to Switzerland to change gears and stuff like that. But yeah, it was quite a while.
Hmm.
I can't exactly remember, but for sure half a year, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Maybe tell the listeners where did you end up going? What countries, and what were you doing in each of those countries?
Well, I started my journey in India because like this is the thing. I mean, I was so drawn to the yoga world because I mainly loved the philosophy. So I right away knew I have to go to India. I really wanted to study at the source. Source means for me because I love the Ashtanga yoga. So for me, it was clear I have to start in Mysore. So I spent 3 months in India and I loved it. I mean, it was a completely new world that opened up for me. And then from India, I went to Australia and then moved on to New Zealand and then from New Zealand to America and then back to Switzerland. Yeah. So this were like kind of the bigger steps. Yeah.
And during the whole time of that trip, you were able to support your traveling and also continuing education because you were training in Mysore. And I think you also did some training in Goa. I remember it was Purple Valley training. So those trainings, traveling, those living expenses you were able to earn from this online freelance job of helping other yoga teachers or similar professions.
Yeah, and also like I mean the travel part was really a lot of build it of work trades. I mean, I was a lot of like also like, you know, if I'm doing this, I can get a free accommodation, or if I'm helping in the kitchen, you can get the food. So I was really getting creative about how to make that work. And besides that, I started to build my business. Yeah, I was working on my own website and like starting to create that, but I also like I always took a chance like yeah in Mysore for example I helped a lot stuff like this and if you're open to these things and kind of like work trades you can actually travel very good.
Yes, definitely. And I know there's a website, I don't know if you have heard of a website called Yoga Trade, where there's a lot of trade job as well as paid position for yoga teachers. But not only yoga teachers, there's a lot of jobs for content creators or photographers, videographers. And there's other website that you can find jobs while you're traveling or trade work while you're traveling. Were you using anything like that to find these trade opportunities, or do you just kind of go in and ask?
Yeah, see, we should have talked before. No, I didn't know about that, but I think like one of my strengths is probably I just love to meet new people. So I love to hanging in a coffee place and then meet people and just talk, and then things luckily just came up. Yeah. So like words and mouths and just hearing. Yeah. And there are a lot of groups in the different places you stay, like WhatsApp groups or like Facebook groups where, yeah, things are just requested and then you can reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And but now that I'm listening to your that first leg of journey that you did, you were kind of following Joan with where she was teaching her workshops and retreats, and you were able to attend those in exchange of helping her with the back end stuff.
Exactly, exactly. Or
So,
same like for example, we visited Christina in New Zealand, right? Who's part of the school too. And same, I helped to build her website. And so she invited me in and said, like, why don't you stay for a while with us in New Zealand and you help me with the website. So in the beginning it was really a lot of work trades and like people were like, yeah, it was always it felt in a very equal exchange.
mhm.
And it gave me the time to also build up my business, right? And to really start to earn money.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, like I think doing the work trade probably, like you said, helped you build your business. Now you have like portfolio or review or testimonials of the clients you have worked in the past that you can use towards finding a new client. And I think that's wonderful that that happened. And I guess I want to rewind just a little bit to ask you about Ashtanga yoga. When and how did you get introduced and started, and what got you hooked in Ashtanga?
Yeah, well, this happened also kind of through Joan because, like, as you probably know, her teacher training is Ashtanga and Iyengar inspired, and she practiced Ashtanga for a long time. So I was curious after the training. I was like, what is this Ashtanga? Because I didn't practice it before. So I was like searching for Shala here where I'm living in Zurich, and I said like, oh, really want to learn this method too. So I started here in Zurich, in Mysore Zurich, in the Mysore Zurich Shala, and yeah, as said, I knew right away when I started this, I was like, oh, I want to learn that from the source because I read all these books like where teacher traveling to India to study, and I was like, oh, I want to study in India. So literally very quick after I started to practice Ashtanga, I booked a flight to India. Yeah. And it just all came together because like, yeah, we met in Goa and so Mysore was before and it just worked out. Yeah. And I got hooked with Ashtanga, like probably most Ashtangas, right? Ashtangis, when you start, you're hooked. I mean, you practice it too, right? So you know what I'm talking about.
Definitely. And the first time you went to Mysore, you practiced with Shrath's mother. Is that correct?
Exactly. Sharat's mother and Patabi Joy's daughter.
Hmm.
So when the first time I went to Mysore, I practiced with Saraswati because honestly, I had no idea that there is a whole process behind that Mysore studying thing with the lineage holder. I just knew I want to go to Mysore because this is where Ashtanga is coming from. And then only there I learned that it's actually quite a process behind that. So I ended up to study with Saraswati because it's way easier to study with her, and I had a beautiful experience. I really liked it,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, it was beautiful practicing in the old shala, and yeah,
Yeah. So when you didn't sign up for anything, you just kind of showed up to Mysore and be like, all right, how can I practice Ashtanga? And we were able to practice with Saraswati.
Well, kind of. I booked my flight to Mysore, and then, like, yeah, my teacher in the Shala here in Zurich told me then, listen, you have to register. You cannot just, it's not like in these days that you can just go and then you see you have to register. But yeah, with Sharat, there is no chance you can study with him, because there's, yeah, a certain day in the year you have to sign in or to apply. But you can try to study with Saraswati because she is more open for like requests. So I did that. Yeah,
And
it was like 2 weeks before I wrote, and they said like, sure, come.
I love that. And how long was the first trip to Mysore? How long were you practicing with her?
I was for 5 weeks with her, yeah. And then afterwards, I went to Purple Valley to study with Tim Feldman. And then I met Joan in Goa, and where I met you to finish my 300-hour training.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And then after, I think you said you went to New Zealand, Australia. Is that the same trip you also went to Miami to study with Kino? That was
No, that was the year after.
year after. Okay. So maybe tell us, me and the listeners, how did you kind of transition from this trade working to being able to find enough clientele to start earning money and make this into more of a career path?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think I started to trust myself more because in the beginning it was also like, who can this work out and is this really a path I can follow? But then, for example, in Purple Valley, I was talking about what I'm doing. So there, for example, I met a new client I worked afterwards with. So it just naturally really unfold. And then with Joan in general, I mean, when I finished my 300 hours in Goa with you, it was also the ending point of our work trade because we always said with when I'm ending the 300 hours, let's see where we are. And also before we had still a student teacher relationship, right? So it was like also let's see how this is going. And then she was like she was happy with my work. I was happy like supporting her. So we said like, okay, do we want to continue working with each other? And we both said yes. And so we officially said like, okay, let's get in work partners. So we transitioned a little bit from the teacher-student relationship, which was also possible because I started to dive really deep into Ashtanga. So I shifted also a little bit into more into the teaching of Ashtanga. So I think work-wise, this worked out well. And yeah, so from this side, I started to get more professional and also like with continuing being on this journey, I really started to also speak for myself, which in the beginning was really hard. Like I was like, do really want people work with me? Is this possible? And yeah, like I think for everyone, for us, like right when you gain more experience, you trust yourself more, you're getting more self-confident. Yeah.
Yeah. And I even remember from that Goa training, there was a handful or several people were interested in like getting help from you already when you were sharing about what you could do to help yoga teachers. So I think it's so beautiful and also great what you're doing because you have the skill sets that a lot of yoga teachers don't. I feel like yoga teachers are more creative or artists or they just love to teach. But many of us, not all, but many of us lack like, okay, like how do I make a website? How do I make myself more visible in the world and how to do branding or social media strategy. Like those are the skill sets that maybe a lot of yoga teachers don't possess or maybe aren't interested in. So I think it's so great that you offer that kind of offering skills consulting because yeah, I think it's definitely the skill that is needed in the yoga world.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? I realized that's what I said. I realized more and more, okay, there is really a niche for me. And yeah, I just found my way in the yoga and wellness industry to still offering my kind of old part of me, right? And also, I mean, I studied really a lot. I mean, a long part of my yeah former career business was studying. So I mean, it's also nice I can use the skills, right? And also I realized the teaching is not coming naturally for me. So it was really great that I can still participate in the industry with the skills I have. And I love to organize, I love to be creative, and I still have to structure everything and so my business brain is still working. So I kind of like, yeah, happy that this works out.
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like I love seeing you and Joan's partnership, the business partnership, because I think you do bring so much to her branding, her school of yoga, you know, how everything is set up in the retreat. And I remember You were sharing with me the first retreat that you are kind of in charge of promoting or creating or something like that. And this is kind of like the test run. I remember we were talking about it in Goa, but I do remember that retreat went very well and it was very successful.
Yeah, I mean, this was for sure another like part in the journey, or like a big step, because like exactly she was like trusting me, like organizing a retreat for her, and I feel really honored because she's working with a lot of retreat organization and all that, and she was like, well, you come from the travel industry, you love to organize, let's do something together. And yeah, it was a great success. We had an amazing group, but it was also a great retreat center. And this was another like aha moment where I like, okay, I really want to create more retreats
Mhm.
and being a retreat organizer, because it just came so naturally for me. Like for you, probably the teaching, right? So for me, it just came so naturally to organize all of that. And yeah, I think I had a spark in my eyes when we saw all the people there. And yeah, since then we continue organizing retreats together. Yeah, and in the
Yeah.
future, I hope I can organize also for other yoga teachers.
Yeah. So that's one of the service you offer now is helping teachers organize retreat. And
Exactly.
are you helping Joan with most of her retreats now?
No, well, I mean, Joan is in the industry for like how many years? 30 years. So she has a broad network, and she's also working, of course, with other retreat organizers like
Huh?
my, which of course also makes totally sense, right? So we continue working together, but she has so many different things to offer. So she is still continuing working with a lot of her longtime partners also.
Hmm. And I guess I want to hear going back to your travel. I know you finished that leg of travel, went back to your home in Europe, but you started traveling again. I know you went back to Mysore to study with Shrath this time, and also ended up going to Miami to start with Kino. So can you tell us a little bit about that trip of your, I guess it was more like Ashtanga continuing education focused trip that you did?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, I realized, I mean, also I love Switzerland, right? Where I'm based. I love the mountains. I love hiking and all of that. So in my mind, it was really trying to create a life where I can half time travel, half time being in Switzerland in the mountains. So for me, it was in my mind was like, yeah, can I have half a year at home and half a year traveling kind of?
Yeah.
And so after I was in India, I said like I definitely have to come back. And this time I of course like organized everything and like really informed myself how this whole process works to study with Sharad Choice. And so I signed up, I applied, and I luckily got in. So I returned to Mysore and studied this time with Sharad Choice. And yeah, I was diving deeper into Ashtanga. I really love the practice. Yeah, and for me, it was clear I want to continue this path, and I want to, as long as I can go, I want to go to Mysore and study there. And this is also, and I studied with Tim before, Kino's husband, and while I was in Mysore, I was talking to Tim, and so it was just like, okay, maybe I'm going to Miami and learn more about really how to teach Ashtanga, the series and the counting in Sanskrit and all that, because this is something I didn't learn at Joan, of course. Yeah, and also like just like to diving deeper into that lineage. So I decided actually in Mysore to go to Miami. Yeah.
And how many months were you in Mysore your second time?
2 months. I was 2 months in Mysore, and yeah, I actually was supposed to go back this season again, right? But like as we all know, the unexpected happened, and yeah, we don't know.
Mm. Yeah, that was a very unexpected, sudden, and sad news. It was, even though I have never studied with him and I'm not a daily Ashtanga practitioner at this moment, I was in the past. But I have one of my main teachers, Ashtanga teacher, and she was actually there in Virginia when it happened. She was in that training. So the news was very, I felt very heavy from that news as well. So I really feel for the whole community and his family. I hope there will be more clear journey path forward for the Ashtanga community.
Yeah, well, it's really very hard at the moment for all of us, and I can't even imagine how, like, yeah, as you said, like your teacher or like people
Mm.
like Tim and Kino and a lot of people I know like who really studied like a lot of years and have already studied with Patabi Choice too, how it must be for them, because already for me and I think a lot of people in the whole community, it really feels like a big emptiness and sadness. And yeah, I mean, I guess all of us have a lot of question marks
Mm-hmm.
how this will be. And on the same time, I'm so grateful and happy I was there and I had the chance to study with him. And I think the beauty that right now is unfolding to see how strong the community is, how much love there is, and like how the practice is still like, yeah, I mean, the teachers do their job, they spread the teaching, and I mean the practice continues.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Yeah.
day we are on our mat, but right now I think it's still so fresh and new that it also takes a time to really realize and process all of that. And then eventually at some point we get answers to the questions or we never
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, but definitely you're right. Like community is strong, and what I'm seeing and witnessing is that, everyone still like continues to practice, right? That daily practice, that anchor. And it's so amazing to see everyone in the community still showing up and practicing. And I think great thing is that he trained so many amazing teachers. So there are teachers all over the world still teaching and leading Mysore Room. So there's that. Like, there's so many amazing teachers who actually directly learned from him or his grandfather that it's still out there teaching and leading a Mysore Room. So definitely, I admire the strength of the community.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would love to know now that you've been doing this work of helping yoga teachers and people in the wellness industry with their back end job, the business side of things. And how is it going? Do you feel like this has become more sustainable for you? And I love how you said your dream was to live half of the year in Switzerland and half the year traveling. Is that has that become a reality for you? Is that something you want to continue doing?
Well, I mean, I think it would be too easy to say everything just worked out and it was easy. I mean, I really struggled this year. I also have to say that. I mean, but also, I mean, I still live in a very expensive country. Nevertheless, I make it work, right? I mean, I'm figuring it out and I'm very hopeful and I actually trust a lot that next year will be a lot of more stability because also for me it is a learning process, right? And building up a business takes time and I'm only in my second year. So I think it's also like putting also there a little bit the pressure out, like everything has to be perfect already. And so I'm adjusting and working it out, but it's moving forward and I have a lot of amazing clients, this for sure. And yes, I love to continue doing that, like being half time on the road and half time here. And yeah, my flights to India are booked. In January, I'm flying. So we see from there.
How long are you planning to stay in India this time?
Well, I plan to stay two months, and then I'm going to Nepal to meet Joan.
So you'll be
Diving.
joining that trekking retreat.
Yeah.
That looked really cool. So, and all this time while you're traveling, joining retreats or joining trainings, you're also always have been working on the side when you're not practicing on your computers, working with clients.
Yes, I mean, I always had something to do. It was never that like I was in vacation, let's say like this. I rather had some work trades ongoing, so or I was trying to build my business or working with clients already. Yeah. So it was never like a vacation lying in the sun. It was really a time of transforming. And if I had some time, I really used it to study yoga, which is
Mhm.
still something I love to do.
Okay, so I would love to ask some questions for the listeners. In terms of, since you have helped many yoga teachers and other wellness practitioners already, so what kind of tips or advice would you give to yoga teachers who feel like they're completely like, I love teaching, but I don't know anything about the website, promotion, advertising. Like, where can they start if they are, maybe they've been teaching for a while, but they haven't really saw their business or teaching as their business yet? What are some tips you have for them, or what are some easy steps that yoga teachers can do to start to really see themselves as a business owner?
Well, I mean, kind of like what I've learned on my own journey too, right? First of all, like really finding your authenticity and to trust yourself, but also to get visible. Because like I mean, even I in the beginning, and I'm even out of that field, had like, like, yeah, anxiety, like putting myself out there. But I think it's really important to be visible, and you can start in small steps. But like, I think it is important nowadays to have a website. It must nothing be fancy. Or it doesn't need to be a website. It also can be just social media, but like that people can find you, or have a Google business site or something, like just to give this a little bit more of a professional touch, because also then it becomes reality, right? As soon as you put yourself out there, it becomes reality. And the more you talk about, the more you make yourself visible, yeah, it becomes more tangible. And I think this is something for sure. I would say, like, just become to get visible, trust yourself, and be also authentic to yourself. Because I mean, I thought kind of like teaching is the way into this industry. But I realized maybe for me it's not coming naturally, but I found my way to still be part of that industry, right? With the skills that I have. So I think it's also important to honor all our unique strengths and like find our way in the way I mean, even if it's not the yoga industry, but just like, where is your passion, and where do you want to be, and then make a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. With all the times and experience you have with working with yoga teachers and people in the wellness industry, what are some like maybe patterns or trends you have noticed in them that like maybe they're missing a point, or maybe they're struggling with this thing?
Well, I mean, what I've noticed is like there is like this time of like really being concentrated and being on a screen or in a business meeting is maybe a little bit annoying, or like they are loving creating new sequences or in their teacher head, and like, to be like, okay, let's sit, let's focus, let's put up a strategy and tuck, tuck, tuck. So this is sometimes where I'm realizing I need, or I needed to develop also a little bit of more patience, and like, getting on a different pace, and maybe scheduling since stuff differently than I'm used to do it in the business world. But in general, I also noticed that everyone is super open, and I think it's just a little bit the guidance and asking really also for help, right? I mean, I need a lot of help along my way too. And I think just also open up and speak about the things where you need help. And there are people out there, and everyone has different skills. So we can just help each other with the skills that we have. So also be open to just ask for help. Where a lot of people think, oh, I have to do that all by myself, and I need to be strong, and I'm figuring that out. And I don't know, I have family besides, or I have kids, and this and this and this. So I mean,
Mhm.
our days just have a certain amount of hours, right? So it's
Mhm.
also like putting some pressure out of ourselves and be open for help from the outside.
Yeah, I love that. Asking for help is something I struggle with as well. So definitely,
I mean, I
definitely.
think all of us are doing, right?
Yeah. And maybe a little bit more about retreat side of things. I'm in the process of planning a retreat right now. Any tips on retreat planning, organizing? Because I know there's a lot of listeners who are wanting to run or organize a retreat, yoga retreat themselves. And now that COVID is over, I think retreat business is getting bigger again, busy again. So what are some tips you have on maybe organizational side of running a retreat or setting up or organizing a retreat that you want to share with? Any tips?
Well, there are many things out there. As you said, like there's so many retreat centers, and I think so many retreat organizers and so many yoga teachers who want to do a retreat. So from my experience, definitely it needs some organization. So take some time before to set everything up. And I really would recommend to visit the places you want to go. So I don't know, for example, if you say like, I want to go to Costa Rica, then I mean, I'm a person who really goes there before and talks to retreat owners if it's really a fit. I mean, if you can do that and also like really staying there and feel the places out, if it fits to your values. I mean, like it's the food that they offer, like how I want to have it, because at the end, like it needs to be an authentic fit to what you are offering, right? So really put some effort also in the preparation part, and then start small. I mean, you don't have to be like, I need this amount of people to make that work, but like start small, speak with the retreat owners. There's usually always a way, because for them it's also business. So you can find usually a way. You maybe just take a smaller retreat center, or you take just some houses, or you work together with another retreat yoga teacher, and then maybe you set up something together so both of you can bring people in. But for me, really is the organizational part. The before is very, very important. And I can recommend to feel retreat center and the owners out, because if there is a great fit, usually it will work out very well.
That's such a great tip of like, go see the place first. I actually been thinking of doing a retreat in one location, and I just like refuse to book a place before I see it. So I really want to go see it myself, see the place, see the rooms, like you said, the food, and meet the owners and get their vibe, because pictures can be deceiving. Like, if you only go by their website or their Instagram, you just never know what it actually look in reality with your own eyes, and also getting the vibe of the place. So I love that tip as well. Go see the place first. I love that.
Go see the place first, or even if you're attending retreats, like, and you really like a place, for example, then you just ask. I mean, even if you attend, you can ask afterwards the retreat owner, like, this could be a step, like if you don't have time, or not the extra money to travel and find retreat centers, but if you're attending someone or a friend of yours, like, so this might be a fit. I would never book something where you have not been seen it, or you don't really know someone who's been there. Yeah.
Yeah, such a good point. And I'm curious about the pricing point. Not only, I guess, retreat, how to price it, but also how have you found your way in your own business of how to price your offering? And I feel like, and that can also go into like retreat pricing too, but I feel like owning your own business, like pricing has always been a challenge for me. What's my work worth? But also like, what's the market rate? Like what's other people are charging? Did you also go through a process of figuring out your own pricing when you start to build your business?
Well, I mean, luckily I've worked long enough in the travel industry and planning trips and doing exactly this. So especially for retreats, this is really something what I said, like it really comes naturally to me. As soon as I have some prices, I love to do calculations on Excel, and I set up prices. So this is something that is just naturally for me. But with my own prices, well, it's just like, I mean, I have kind of like a strategy also, like I work with individuals, but I also work with companies. And so I have different prices, of course, if I'm still in the corporate world, and also like with whom I'm working around the world, because I think also a lot of I'm doing is coming out of service. I also, same, like a lot of people supported me on the way. So I kind of try to make it work so that everyone is kind of like, who wants to work with me, to try to make it work at least. But it's always harder to do stuff like this for yourself. And I agree, but I think we are all worth it. But I'm also trusting that kind of like it can work out this way, right? So maybe if you're like in this, like you have the flexibility, and like I think in the teaching yoga is like maybe having the privates who give you a little bit more income, but then maybe you can teach somewhere else for a little bit less money. But at the end, it's like in a good balance. And I think we just have to feel worthy and in good in what we are doing and offering. So it kind of gives, or yeah, if there is a good balance in what you're offering.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I'm learning how to like think about pricing and like really think like, does this feel good to me? This exchange of charging this much money for this much of work or service, like, does it feel good to my heart? Does it feel fair? Does it feel like a good even or a good exchange? And like usually when I actually like close my eye and think about it, my body will know when it's like, I don't feel good about that. Like, I feel like it's too low, or I feel like I'm being too people pleasing right now. Like, I feel like that checking in with my like deep soul of like, does this feel right? Like, really right in my heart. And sometime I'll know, like, okay, that I'm lowballing myself. It's too low of a cost. Or, I feel like that continuing checking in, I think is great. But it's so great to hear that like retreat planning, pricing, those things come natural to you because you've been in this industry for so long. So I can totally see why yoga teachers out there working with you is going to be very helpful and also reassuring that like, okay, these are the steps, you're doing it right, this is correct. Like, I can totally see the benefit of working with somebody like you when planning a retreat, or if anybody, it's their first time building a website or your offering. So I think service you provide for us yoga teachers are invaluable.
Well, thank you so much for the flowers. Yeah. Yeah, and I think also for the pricing, I think when you start out, I mean, you're working quite a while in the industry now too, so you're very advanced already kind of in the process. But I think it's really also a learning journey, right? Because at one point, I mean, it's also good to say maybe to some things, just no if it doesn't feel right, or if someone is not honoring your words. I mean, this is, I think, also a learning journey. When we start out, I mean, we think like, okay, we have to say yes to everything. And maybe, yeah, in the beginning, it's also good because you build your portfolio or your experience, and or you gain more teaching skills. But at some point, I think we have to check in and reevaluate. And as you said, if you can still go with a good feeling to bed, I think then everything is good.
Yeah, so true. And I want to little bit circle back to how you said everything felt right and everything felt like it was all working out for you when you started to help yoga teachers and wellness practitioners in the business side, where like I want to say that I had a similar feeling when I first became a yoga teacher as well. It's like, oh, now things are working out, like opportunities are coming. Like I feel like the life has like this push towards one direction. And if you follow that direction, things kind of start to unfold and work out. And I love to hear that with you after that teacher training with Joan, you were starting to, and you decided to kind of lean into your strength of websites and social media marketing. Then everything kind of started to unfold and work itself out. I love hearing that because I think, and I believe that is usually like the sign that we are following our dharma. So I don't know if you feel like that in where you are right now in your life.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I still have a lot of question marks how my path will unfold, but I truly feel that I am on the right path, and I trust the journey, because this is what I learned over the last years, right? Since I stepped into the kind of unknown, I can really trust, and there is kind of a protection there, an invisible protection. If we follow our heart, things unfold naturally, and you meet the right people at the right time, and yeah, things just unfold naturally. And I think then you're on the right journey, even if you don't have every answer. You still feel like, okay, this feels right, and I can follow, yeah, this my heart.
I love to hear that. And last couple questions for you. What does success mean to you right now?
Well, for me, success right now really means that I can support and see others evolving and shine, to be out of service, because like, I mean, this is what I've learned over the last years, right? It's such a different field if you work out of this feeling you want to support someone, and you give someone else a new skill set, and you make them stronger because it makes me stronger and more confident. And so for me, really success means if I'm seeing people shine because like they're more confident in their business part. And at the same time, success for me also means that I can really realizing this kind of life I'm living right now. I have the opportunity to travel, to meet amazing people and go on trainings, and like having a podcast like Reka. So yeah, this means also success for me, so that I really can trust my own journey.
I love that. And last question is, where do you see your career path or your life going in the future? If you have a direction you want to head your business towards, or it can be your personal life mixed together with business. I know you said your dream is to work half part-time home in Switzerland and have kind of home base, but then the other half of the year to travel, which is something I dream of quite a bit. So I don't know if that's still kind of your path that you're trying to lead, or is there anything else that you want to create?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's half, but I mean, I also like to be at a place, and I love the mountains and being here. But like, yeah, as my definitely for the future, I want to keep traveling, because I just love to meet new cultures, new people. It inspires me, and it sparkles more of my creativity. And definitely, if I'm expanding the retreats, I mean, the travel is kind of necessary for that anyhow. So yeah, for the next couple of years, for sure, I see myself traveling. And then I also need at the same time, some quiet time and some reflect time. And yeah, my base here is beautiful for that, because you're a lot of nature, and you can, yeah, dive a little bit deeper. And then on the travel part, I'm like, yeah, expanding and connecting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for you. Well, tell the listener, Tina, like how can they work with you? What kind of service you offer for, because it'll be mostly yoga teachers listening. So what kind of service or thing do you offer for yoga teachers to help them get to the next level of their business? So anything, any way that you want to share your work with the listeners.
Well, there are different options. I mean, first of all, like, happy if they reach out on Instagram or on my website. It's Tina Soul Spark Creation on Instagram, and my website is my name, Tina Schmelzer. But yeah, easiest way is to reach out on Instagram, and I'm there supporting on actually literally every creative process. It's like really starting from just creating a brand or make yourself more visible on social media. I have a course on how to use Canva, so if you start really easy. And then also, yeah, if you want to work more business-wise, how to create retreats, or I'm also coaching really on how to make the next step in your business, so more business consulting. So whatever helps you growing on your own journey and own path.
Great. I will definitely link all of that on the show notes. And if you want to, I'm sure maybe on your website you offer this, but if you want to see Tina's work, I feel like if you go to School of Yoga, Instagram or website, that probably you can see like a really amazing work that you do to make everything also cohesive, in branding, colors and fonts. And I feel like you do such a beautiful job there, because that's probably the work I see the most is Joan's stuff. So, but I can see that there's been a shift since you got involved with Joan's work. So I noticed that, and everything is very beautiful and cohesive. And plus, another thing I want to mention is like you also are a great photographer. So you've taken a lot of photos for Joan's website and business and her own photos. So I feel like that, and retreats, I feel like that's such another great additional skills that you have that you offer.
Yeah, I mean, I just love to create, right? And photography is definitely a part of it because you can capture so wonderful. And yeah, I mean, the School of Yoga, first of all, it would be nice if you follow us. Always love to support Joan and the whole community there because she just created something beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks again for like all the nice and kind words.
Yes.
Definitely, I will sleep well today. I just
Yeah.
love to create with different people because I think like this is the really beautiful part, right? Something beautiful can be created if people work together. And like I'm on the same side, so inspired as like working all these different people because yeah, it inspires me for my own kind of business. And
I love it. Thank you for all the work that you do for all the yoga teachers out there. And I also want to say I am very inspired by you with your dedication to your practice of Ashtanga. It's so beautiful to see. And you are very inspiring in so many ways. And you're also so dedicated to this lineage of yoga. I mean, like yoga in general, how you're so dedicated to practice, but also continuing to learn and also help other yoga teachers out there. I think there's so much that I look up to you in that way. So thank you so much for the work that you do for all the yoga teachers and also just in general for yoga. So I really appreciate this conversation we had today. Thank you for being here.
thank you so much, Reika. I mean, you're a big inspiration too. Look at you. You just did like this all the teacher trainings this year and like you having your podcast and like you never stop exploring and creating. And I think I love that about you. And I think this is very inspiring too. Like, yeah. And sometimes you also just try things out, right? And then you see what works. And so yeah,
Exactly.
it's beautiful talking to you. And I think that's the thing, right? If you're kind of like dedicated and passionate about something, and yeah, I love my practice. And I think this is also something which I think lets things unfold, right? If you're dedicated to something. So I thank
Yes.
you very much for listening to my story also and like inviting me today. And like same, likewise, very inspiring talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the conversation I had with Tina. I hope that was a different but also creative and inspiring career path in the yoga world. You don't have to teach, but you can still love yoga so much and want to be in the yoga industry. And there's different ways you can help and be of service using your strength and skill set. And I think Tina does that so beautifully. So thank you, Tina, for coming on to share your journey. I really, really appreciate all the work that you do. So that is it for this week. Like I said earlier, if you're interested in 200-hour teacher training with me and Shanti, that's happening February to May, every other weekend in Orange County, Laguna Niguel. Link will be in the show notes, as well as my mentorship program for yoga teachers application just opened up. So if you're interested in joining from January of 2025, I would love for you to fill out that application form and get to know you a little bit more. There's a lot included in the mentorship program, and I try to evolve and improve the program every module by listening to the feedback from all of my mentees in the program. So if you have any questions about that or want to apply, that link will also be in the show notes. If you just want to join the book club, which is free and you don't have to be a yoga teacher, then you can message me either on social media, Instagram at Reika Yoga, or you can message me through my website on contact form to let me know that you want to join so I can include you into the WhatsApp group for the yoga book club. That is it for now. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you continue to follow your path and your dharma, whatever that path may be for you. I hope you follow a meaningful and purposeful path for you. Have a great day and talk to you next.